everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Konnect Conversations. Hope you all are doing well. Today, we have with us someone who is a dynamic and accomplished business leader with 21 plus years in the tech industry. An alumnus of the Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai, he has worked in senior management roles across Asia for Wipro, Microsoft, LinkedIn, and Intel. He's a startup evangelist and prominent angel investor with a portfolio of 25 plus startups across different segments of business, enterprise, and consumer. He is a mentor of change for Niti, Ayog, and mentors school children on innovation programs. Apart from being a TEDx speaker, he has given motivational talks at many prominent B schools and colleges across India. He's a fitness enthusiast, having run 18 half marathons and 12 full marathons, and also completed the half Ironman in the year 2018. He has read over 400 books in the last 4 years and loves to share learnings from his reading and running experience. A very warm welcome to Mr. Hetal Sonpal. Hello, sir. Welcome to MP Konnect, and thank you so much for being a part of Konnect Conversations.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Antara. It's a pleasure to be on the call and look forward to an interesting conversation. I hope I can be of use in promoting your mission.
Thank you so much, sir. So before we start, what I would like to start with something that I have been personally very curious about. So you were born and brought up in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. You did your schooling from Campion School, then you completed engineering from SGS ITS Indore, and then you eventually moved out for, obviously better job prospects. So if you were to compare the time from the 80s and 90s to the current scenario, what do you feel or what do you think have been the major changes when it comes to, the corporate job as well as entrepreneurial opportunities that come in respect with Central India, and in our case, more like when it comes to Madhya Pradesh?
It's interesting that you asked me to compare the Bhopal of today versus what it was in 80s and 90s. There's a sea change, of course, no doubt, because the world has changed a lot during this time. And I think where MP has prospered is to retain its uniqueness, to retain its niceness. Bhopal and Indore rank among the cleanest cities in the country, which is a phenomenal achievement, because cleanliness was never a major priority back then. Not that the cities were dirty, but we never thought of that as an important thing. When you talk about corporates and entrepreneurship, again, there is a big change, because the number of companies which have promulgated now, which is basically a direct outcome of the growth of the economy in the country and the industry as a whole. The fact that MP provides good resources in terms of land and labor and capital, it is a great area for people to set up industries. The number of colleges and schools and colleges and universities which have sprung up is phenomenally high. So you have good pool of people available. So it's very advantageous for someone to set up a infrastructure and a company in Madhya Pradesh today compared to back then, because back then the scope was very limited. And if someone had to start a big enterprise, they had to go to the larger metros, because that's where most of the people would be, and that's where they will get most of the expertise and capabilities. And the market was also there, right? That's the other thing, that MP as a market for all consumer and industrial goods has expanded a lot. That helps. The overall financial activity has increased. Malls have come up, markets have come up. Overall, there is a lot more vibrancy and opportunities in Madhya Pradesh today than back then in 80s and 90s. There's no doubt about that. Yet, despite the huge industrial wave, I like that the people of Bhopal, the people of Indore or MP for that matter, are very simple, still very simple and very down to earth. You don't see any ego evident in the people, and it's always nice to go back home and meet with my friends.
Yeah, right. Wonderful, sir. So, sir, you are also, like we have previously mentioned in your introduction, you're also a startup evangelist. You are an angel investor. You're also closely working with the government's Hetal Innovation Mission as a mentor of change at the school level. So, sir, if it wouldn't be wrong to say, if you are a budding entrepreneur or you're wanting to start something of your own in India specifically, this is the best time. So do you think, do you feel the same? Do you feel that the current startup culture in India has finally come of age? How would you describe the current situation from the perspective of your positions, of course?
So there's no doubt about that. I think the best time to be creating a startup in India, if there ever was best time, is probably now. Multiple reasons. One is from a intellect perspective. I think students nowadays, not only college students but even school students, are far more aware. Thanks to technology, devices, and information age, students are far more informed, far more smarter, far more knowledgeable. You know, television episodes like Shark Tank also propagate startups. They're right there in our living room now, right? So that is a huge advantage, number one. Number two, the number of startups which have now reached a stage where you can call them a successful startup, either in terms of acquisition or in terms of fundraising or in terms of listing on the stock exchange, right? With IPOs like Zomato, Nykaa, and Policy Bazaar, and Paytm being huge success in the last financial year, a lot more startup entrepreneurs are now more confident that they have a path to success. They don't need to languish for want of funds, which used to be the case back in 80s and 90s, when people used to literally struggle to grow. Look, a startup's life is really tough because you're starting from scratch with no financial background, no reputation, no brand, no experience. You are up against the wall when it comes to making your venture successful. Not that funding has to be an essential element, but it can be a critical element in many cases, especially if the business requires a lot of publicity and a lot of marketing. One needs to spend a lot of money in the initial stages to be able to establish the brand. Yes, the product should speak for itself, but for customers to forget about experiencing the product, for the customers to even know that the product exists, minimalistic amount of marketing is needed to be done consistently. Indian consumers are really tough customers. To convince them, just one exposure of your advertisement is not enough. You need to show them 2-3 times. So there is fundamental need for funds for an entrepreneur to succeed at a certain stage, and that ecosystem of funding and getting investments has now increased significantly, which means it is far more easier to get such funds.
Right.
The other factor which is critical is in terms of the long-term view, right? So these companies now have a vision to look forward to. Now they have something to plan as well. The type of startups which have come up is significant: consumer, enterprise, e-commerce, sports, edtech, fintech. Every domain there are opportunities. Right. So you're not narrowly restricted to certain categories alone. So yes, I think the answer to your question is a very confident yes, that there is no better time than to run a startup nowadays.
Right. Great, sir. So, sir, you're talking about your professional journey. I think it recently took a very interesting turn. You wrote a book called Against All Odds on the life of your father, Mr. Kishore Sonpal. And I think the book launched last year only, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So, so after working with all these major tech giants that I mentioned in your introduction before, what really inspired or prompted a tech industry veteran like you to turn into an author? And if you could please tell our viewers a bit about what the book is all about.
Definitely. That's my favorite topic. No talk of mine is complete without the reference to my book. Right. So firstly, I had started showing interest in writing 3-4 years back itself. I was starting to write blogs and articles. The whole idea was that since I had about 16-18 years of experience in the industry, there was a lot which I felt I wanted to share. And when it comes to sharing, talking and writing are the most obvious ways to do it. So I was getting multiple opportunities to give motivational talks at schools and colleges and give lectures on my experience, on my learning from my working experience. And that formed the base for my writing as a career. Writing a book was always on my mind. It was just a coincidence way back in June 2019 when my father was diagnosed with cancer. I just suddenly got interested, and I told him, look, I'm going to write a biography on you. He was going through last stage cancer. He knew his time was limited, and he was an avid reader and avid writer as well. But he didn't write a book, but he wrote a lot of diary notes. So that was a critical part, right? He had a very strong association with books,
Okay.
and for a book to be written about him, there couldn't have been a bigger high point than that for him. And the moment he was excited about my suggestion, the project got going, and he was very supportive and he had a very strong memory, so he could recollect a lot of incidents in his childhood, in his school days, in his college days, which were very critical for a biography to be complete in itself, right? So it's his biography. And the reason I titled it Against All Odds is because he faced multitude of challenges. He cheated death multiple times in his life. He had lots of ups and downs in his career. Right from the first chapter, you will realize the kind of challenges, because his father had gone completely bankrupt at the time of his birth. So he had an impoverished childhood from which he rose, and he rose really well and made a mark for himself, and left a legacy which is even alive even now. A lot of people who know him were extremely excited and supported the idea of writing a book. They contributed in terms of sharing the anecdotes of their own experience with my father, what they learned from him, what they found was important capabilities and qualities of his, which made him a remarkable person. The book, and fortunately for me, Rupa, as a publisher, agreed to publish the book. It was launched on his birth anniversary on 21st August last year. And it's available on multiple platforms, offline, online, digital, Kindle. And please go and check it out, and please do give it a read. I'm sure you would not be disappointed.
Right. Wonderful. So if we, like, this is something that you have written a book. So where do we see you next? Like, what are your plans for future? Are you planning to write more books, or are you planning to move ahead in the field of like being an angel investor or evangelist? Like, where does your future beckon now?
Oh yeah, I'm a busy person. I love to keep myself busy.
Right.
I keep challenging myself in setting up new goals and new objectives. If I just look at the near short term, I have my full Ironman coming up. I completed the half Ironman back in 2018. I've signed up for the full Ironman in Kazakhstan, which has got rolled over twice because of Corona.
Right.
I hope finally this year happens. I've run multiple half and full marathons, but I've not run an international marathon. So I'm signed up for the Chicago Marathon, which is coming up in October this year. That should be something to look forward to. I did the Everest Base Camp trek in 2019, but I have the plan to climb the summit, and that will probably be one of the most loftiest goal of my life. Another 2-3 years before I do that, but I need to enhance my trekking experience to do that. And on the academic side, I have a couple of book projects already on the annual, a couple of ideas which I'm looking at. So book number 2 and 3 are already in the thought process right now. I have been approached by a co-author for a collaborative project as well, which is extremely interesting. All under wraps right now, but you will get to hear it in due course of time. And probably the biggest project which I'm right now currently actively working on is I'm pursuing my doctoral studies. I plan to do my PhD in entrepreneurship from IIM Kozhikode. It's a very exciting journey to start to become a student at this age. Going back to school after 29 years is quite a demanding task, I should say. Let's hope things go well, and I can become Dr. Hetal Sonpal very soon.
Wonderful, sir. We are so excited. That sounds really, really exciting, and we wish you the very, very best in all your future endeavors. And so before we leave you, I'll, like, in the current scenario, in today's competitive world, all the young professionals and the entrepreneurs, everybody's, running after money, success, and recognition, especially like when it comes to entrepreneurship, everybody's trying to be unique in their own way and trying to stand out. So in such a scenario, like, of course, every person's definition of happiness and success is different. It varies from person to person. But if you were supposed to give an advice to all these youngsters, what would be something that you would say will make them happy and successful? Like, how can they be happy and successful? And once they have achieved their state of happiness and success, how can they keep at it and, not let it go? So if you can give a word of advice on that.
You have a knack for ending it on a very emotional and philosophical note, and I think that's a good way to conclude the conversation. When it comes to happiness and the incessant chase for wealth and the misconception and the strong misunderstanding that money equal to happiness is something which spoils the future for a lot of youngsters, because they get misdirected and misaligned in their career objectives, and they rate their success of their career based on the amount of wealth they have generated. The source of happiness is not wealth. The source of happiness is inner peace, right? To be able to set realistic goals for yourself, keep rechecking yourself, doing a course correction, whether what you're doing is something which is really allowing you to make the most of what you learned, right? For me, the biggest awakening and the reason I decided to not run after my fairly successful corporate career is I realized that I had stopped utilizing what I had learned. My job was not giving me the kind of wow which I had anticipated from it, and I realized that getting into activities like running, reading, writing, and then pursuing my PhD is something which keeps me motivated and keeps me challenged to wake up every morning, to have an agenda which I can strongly feel proud about, can strongly associate with. I think that's very important, right? So rather than looking at money as a single goal to measure yourself, you should look at what you're building as a capability, how you're embellishing yourself with additional learning all the time, and ensuring that what you learned, you're putting it to good use.
Right.
And at some point of time, the act of giving and gratitude and thankfulness is very important. As long as you're conscious of the skills you have and the ability to be able to make the most of it, you really don't need to run after money like crazy to be successful in life. That's all I would say.
I think that is a very wonderful advice, sir. Something that each of our viewers will ponder over. Thank you so much for taking our time and sitting with us, sharing all your experiences and learnings. I think we had a wonderful time chatting with you, learned a lot of things. And like I said, like we have mentioned, please go and give a read to the book called Against All Odds by Sir. I'm sure it would be of a great learning experience for all of you. Thank you so much, sir, once again. And we wish you all the best for all your exciting future endeavors. And we can't wait to see what you do next. And thank you once again for coming.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking and lovely catching up. And I hope the viewers are able to benefit from my learning, and always available for any more advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.